Times, what's a typical day? Are you the only one? Things like that. So, do you find that kind of stuff? Do you get that?
Um, yeah, and those seems like really hard questions to answer, don't they?
Oh yeah, big time.
And how have you done it?
Well, I basically that's why I'm developing these archive of people because I can just direct them. Like, look at these interviews. Look at this person is doing it. This person, Dana Martin. There's a bunch of others. There's one woman who unschooled her kids in the '80s when before even unschooling was a term.
Yeah.
But like John Holt just discovered it, just named it, I guess. But yeah. So tell me about the history of your podcast and like how it's developed and evolved.
Sure, yeah. I mean, just to jump off what you just said, I feel like it's really important. I need to be better organized about doing this. Building a compendium of people's unschooling or alternative education experiences, even if they involve some school out of public school, like, oh, we tried sending our kids to Sudbury and here's how it worked. Or I was even in a situation where we had to survive the public schools because mom and dad were divorced and they had different attitudes about education, so those things happen. And just saying, like, here's all the different situations that people find themselves in, and try and provide as broad, like as horizontal and vertical of an approach and information as we can. So that's something that I'm really hoping to build out a little better over the next couple of years or so. Those were motorcycles. Wow. We're just on the side of the street in Brooklyn. This is great. So originally, and I said this before, I needed to deal with what I saw as the hidden lessons of school that were delivered not like all the teachers get together and say, here's the checklist that you will work from to indoctrinate these children and ruin their lives, but just the side effects or the consequences of that kind of top-down domination system, that kind of milieu that school is. And the lessons seem to be obedience, almost a kind of reflexive obedience. That because school only works if everybody follows the rules, then people graduate with these very obedient mindsets. And really obviously scales to the state very nicely in that case. Another one was conformity, people being afraid, largely due to the social implications of individuality in school, middle school and high school. People are really afraid to assert themselves, their own personalities, and even if they can, it has to be in the context of a safe group who's also doing the same things, which is why we see, the formation of cliques, or I think that's a big part of it. And a lot of it is about school survival too. And giving up individuality for the sake of conformity, and giving up volition for the sake of obedience, the first two lessons of school, I think produces a kind of intellectual, philosophical, political apathy. Right? So people, how many conversations have we had with people who are like, whatever, man, I just don't really care,
Right.
That's very common.
Yeah.
And that can show up in just complete disregard for what's going on around us in some people, or a kind of tacit acceptance of things at face value. Like, people are driving around with Trump stickers on their car. How did that happen? Doesn't seem like anybody who spent 15,000 hours being educated shouldn't have one of those. But, thousands of people do. Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And, this is the guy leading in the polls. So, and there's lots of examples throughout my life that demonstrate people are not really being educated through the school system. And in the beginning of the show, I thought it was really important to say, here's what I think the three most important but subtle lessons of school are. Never stated explicitly, but they're always kind of running along in the background of the 15,000 hours we spend there. And from there, we kind of move from problems with school to problems within the family that are often created as a result of school. Problems with understanding history, like contextual history of certain events, like how did George Bush get away in 2000 with saying that the U.S. Army has only ever been used for liberation? It's quite a statement, and it requires a lot of people to be pretty ignorant of history. So I was hitting things pretty hard for the first year and a half or so, and then I really wanted to transition into a more constructive conversation. So critical thinking, better relationships through better communication, productivity, and answers to some of these alternative education questions. So I really like the show. I want new people to find the show who are in the position you're in, with two young children, and you're looking for answers to how their education is going to play out, over their lives. It's a lifelong thing. And I want them to be able to walk away saying, I found value in that. I think there's a place, for commiserating about the problems with school, but it's not what my show's about. And I would say it's been like 4 solid years of really trying to focus on the constructive side. And for a long time I said, if something has educational value, I'll do a show about it. But now I really kind of want to hone in on a series of more specific topics. Critical thinking, productivity, self-esteem, better communication. And I still want to be able to deal with school issues, maybe more through like a YouTube channel where people seem to go for their negativity fill. But I want the stuff that's audio content to be really positive, to be really constructive. And I want people to walk away thinking, hey, yeah, I had some real questions about my own schooling past, or what the educational future of my children is going to look like. And I want to be able to help them with that and bring in, other great voices like Jeff Till, who you mentioned, but the libertarian unschooler, Anna Martin, who was a guest a while back. She was terrific. Dana Martin, and there's probably a handful of other people that I just can't recall. But organizing that information, making it very easily accessible to the people who come to the site looking for that, and delivering it, and continuing to find more of those people, to have more in-depth conversations with them, because everybody's kids are different, everybody's family is different, everybody's situation in which this education is going to take place is different. So just to give people as broad a sample as we possibly can of what real education looks like for very young children, for middle school age children, for teens, for adults, and that's what I see really as the future of the show.
Yeah, very cool. The idea about focusing on the positive and the optimistic. I realize like when people discover, they search, government politics and laws and taxes, and it's such a negative thing to realize the violence in the system, and then it's so easy to hover over that and stay, transfixed on that, and the wars and the drone strikes and all that kind of stuff. And I have to constantly tell people that volunteerism is a peaceful philosophy. It's about love, it's about compassion, right? It's about believing in each other rather than in political masters. And so, yeah, you're right. We have to focus on that, I think, if we want to make our philosophy attractive to others.
Absolutely. And you caught me at the right time, because I just finished with Jeffrey Tucker, so I'm all chewed it up with optimism right now. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think I used to say presenting this in a way that makes it look cool, but I just settle for making it look appealing. If you have something that is a powerful message that you want to attract new people to that message, to that philosophy, it has to look appealing, right? It has to look like you're having a good time within that, whatever that thing is. Yeah. So, individual, like personal freedom, and that can include, freedom from past traumatic events or emotional challenges or financial insecurity, and being able to showcase that. And I think that more authentic, self-directed education delivers more opportunities to do that. To say, hey, come look what we're doing, we're having fun. All that really matters is that you get it right for yourself, and then you can scale it from there.
Can you go into a little bit about your background? Like you said, you're a public school teacher. You were, are you?
All right. So I was a public school student for 12 years, which I think is qualification enough. Okay. I wanted to be a public school teacher. I went to school to get a certificate. I did a master's program that I wound up dropping out of. I student taught in public schools. I then went and I taught in what is nominally private schools, even though the state funds the presence of the children who are there, essentially. So a lot of the kids are in the custody of the state. So they're essentially public schools that are privately run. And after I quit that in 2006, I became a private tutor working in the greater Boston area. So I was able to see the public school environment and experience from a variety of different angles. I got to be shocked by all the things that had changed since I had been a student. I got to be shocked by all the things that were somehow exactly the same from the time when I was a student. And I felt like that was a more educational experience than actually working in the public schools as a teacher, is having one job in one place. Like, there's people who don't even have a different classroom over the 25, they might see the cafeteria, their classroom, and the teacher's lounge. Wow. So I was kind of, it's interesting, and I've never really thought about it like this before, but I was on this tour of the Massachusetts and New Hampshire public schools, from all these different vantage points. Like, this is what it looks like for the student, this is what it's like for the teachers, this is what it's like for the parents, this is what it's like to sit in a meeting with a guidance counselor, this is what it's like to try and build a principal's enthusiasm about being able to boost SAT scores, and him telling you that I don't care about SAT scores, boost the state test that they're making me give to the kids because that's what they use to measure the school. I would be happy to bring you in if you can get some of this heat off of me, those kind of conversations. So lots of interesting angles and vantage points, and I did that for, really like 6 solid years, but then it kind of ran into a 7th year before I stopped taking new clients for tutoring to just basically pursue School Sucks full-time as a job.
Wow.
That's what I do now.
Very cool, very cool. All right, yeah, you definitely have a great background to speak from, and yeah, I think people need to hear this message about homeschooling and unschooling because it's still viewed as the fringe thing. Although I see a lot more people are, coming out of the woodwork, and it's like there's Facebook groups, there's websites, there's the internet has been an amazing resource for people who want to learn more. Mm-hmm. And I'm just amazed at people who did it before there was the internet. Because even with the internet, people are afraid, right? Even still, with all that information.
Yeah, absolutely. It is growing, and I felt like I was talking more into a tin can 6 years ago, and now obviously there's a lot more email coming in, people sharing their stories. We were kind of riding the coattails of a couple other shows like Free Domain Radio and Free Talk Live in the beginning. So we were just like taking on a lot of their listeners, and they were saying, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. You're doing, it's like what the people I listen to say. So good for you for